The diner smelled like burnt coffee and fryer grease when Claire heard the sound that didn't belong, a soft, metallic clink. She turned from the register, dish towel still in hand, and saw the child's fork trembling against the edge of a water glass. The boy, maybe 8, pale as paper, was staring at something behind her with eyes too wide, too still. What she didn't know was that in less than 3 minutes, she would make a choice that would unravel 6 centuries of vampire law. But that came later. 12 hours earlier, Claire Dawson had woken to the 3rd eviction notice in as many months. She was 29, a waitress, single mother to a daughter she hadn't seen in 4 years, not since the supervised visits stopped and the state took Lily for good. The apartment in South Baltimore still had Lily's drawings taped to the fridge, fading now, curling at the edges, crayon flowers, a stick figure family that no longer existed. She worked the graveyard shift at Rosie's Diner because it paid an extra $1.50 an hour, and because no one asked questions when you showed up with bruises under your eyes that weren't from fists but from not sleeping, from lying awake at 3 in the morning thinking about court dates and caseworker reports and all the ways she'd failed. The diner sat on the corner of Lafayette and Banner, a fluorescent island in a neighborhood that emptied after dark. The booths were red vinyl, patched with duct tape. The jukebox in the corner hadn't worked since 2003. Claire knew the exact squeak of the 4th floor tile from the door, the way the overhead light in booth 7 flickered every 40 seconds, the smell of rain on hot asphalt drifting through the broken seal on the back window. She knew her regulars. Marcus, who came in at midnight for black coffee and never tipped. The nursing students from Hopkins, who ordered fries and split 1 Coke between 3 people. The cab drivers who paid in crumpled singles and sometimes left spare change on the counter like an apology. She did not know the man who walked in at 11:34 with a child who looked like a porcelain doll and moved like he was walking on the surface of deep water. But she was about to. The bell above the door chimed. Claire looked up from wiping down the counter and felt something shift in the air, a drop in temperature maybe, or just the way the fluorescent light caught his face wrong. He wore a charcoal coat that looked like it cost more than her car. His hair was dark, brushed back, and his eyes, when they caught the diner's greenish light, were the color of winter fog, pale gray, almost silver. The boy beside him didn't blink. Claire watched them take booth 9, the one farthest from the door. The child sat with his hands folded on the table, fingers laced together like he was praying. The man removed his coat with the precision of someone performing surgery, folding it once and laying it on the seat beside him. She approached with the coffee pot. Her shoes made soft sounds on linoleum. "Evening," she said. "Can I get you something?" The man looked up. His gaze was steady, unreadable, and it lingered on her face a moment longer than necessary. "Water. 2 glasses." His voice was quiet, but it carried, like sound over snow, clear and cold. The boy didn't look at her. He was staring at the window, at his own reflection maybe, or something beyond it. His skin had the kind of pallor you saw in hospitals, in people who spent too long under artificial light, but it wasn't sickness. It was something else. Claire poured the water. Her hand was steady. Years of this work had taught her steadiness, how to pour without shaking even when your hands wanted to. "Anything else?" "We've got pie, lemon meringue, cherry, and something the cook insists is apple, but I wouldn't bet money on." The corner of the mouth moved, not quite a smile. "The boy will have milk, warm if possible." Claire nodded. She glanced at the child. He was small for 8, if that's what he was. His hands, resting on the table, looked cold, the kind of cold that came from the inside. She brought the milk 3 minutes later, steam rising from the surface. The boy didn't reach for it. "Too hot?" she asked. The man's gaze shifted to her. There was something in it, surprise maybe, as if he hadn't expected her to speak again. The boy shook his head, just barely. His lips didn't move. Claire crouched down beside the booth, eye level with the child. She set the milk in front of him and tapped the table twice, with her knuckle, deliberate. Then she raised her hands and signed slowly. "It's okay. You're safe here." The boy blinked. The man went very still. Claire didn't know much sign language, just what she'd picked up from a regular who was deaf, an older woman who came in Thursdays and left typed notes on recycled paper. But she knew safe. She knew okay. She knew enough. The boy's hand moved. He touched the glass. His fingers were thin, porcelain fire. "Gil," the man said, very quietly. "Where did you learn that?" Claire stood. "Customer of mine. She taught me a few signs. Why?" She looked at him. His eyes were unblinking, and there was something behind them, something old. "Because," she said, and it seemed like the decent thing to do. The man didn't reply, but something shifted in his expression, something she couldn't name, but felt anyway, a ripple beneath still water. She walked back to the counter. The fluorescent light hummed. The clock on the wall ticked over to 11:47. That's when she heard it, the soft metallic clink of the boy's fork against glass. And when she turned, she saw them, 3 men, standing just inside the door. They didn't look like customers. They wore dark clothing, functional and fitted. Their eyes moved across the diner with the cold efficiency of people trained to assess exits and threats. One of them had a scar running from his temple to his jaw, pale against tanned skin. The man in the booth didn't move, but the boy's hand, resting on the table, curled into a fist. Claire felt the air change, like the moment before a thunderstorm, when the pressure drops and dogs start to whine. The scarred man stepped forward. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Lord, Micah," he said. His voice was conversational. "Didn't expect to see you in a place like this." The man in the booth, Micah, inclined his head slightly. "Gregor, you're far from court. So are you." Claire's pulse kicked up, but she stayed near the counter. Her hand found the edge of the register, something solid to hold on to. Gregor's gaze flicked to her briefly before returning to Micah. The other 2 men spread out, flanking the booth. They moved with the kind of coordination that came from training, from doing this many times before. The boy, the child Micah had brought, sat frozen. His hands were still on the table, but his shoulders had gone rigid. Gregor took another step forward. "You know why we're here?" "I can imagine." Micah's voice was flat, emotionless. He didn't stand, didn't move, but something about his stillness felt dangerous, like a blade resting in a sheath. "The council wants the boy," Gregor said. "You've had your time to." "No." The word was quiet, absolute. Gregor's smile faded. "This isn't a negotiation." "Then you shouldn't have come." Claire's breathing was too loud in her own ears. She didn't understand what was happening, not really, but she understood threat. She understood men who smiled while delivering bad news. One of the other men, younger, with blonde hair tied back, moved closer to the booth. His hand drifted toward his coat. "Gregor," Micah said softly. "The accords." Gregor shrugged. "Neutral ground only applies when both parties respect it. You brought him here. That changes things." The boy made a sound, small, choked. His hand reached for Micah's sleeve. Micah finally moved. He stood, and the space in the diner seemed smaller. He wasn't tall, maybe 6 feet, but he carried himself like someone who'd never had to prove anything. Claire found herself stepping forward. "Hey." All eyes turned to her. Her mouth was dry, but she kept talking. "I don't know what's going on here, but this is a public place. You want to have your pissing contest? Take it outside." Gregor stared at her. Then he laughed, short, sharp. "You have no idea what you're in the middle of, do you?" "Don't really care," Claire said. "But that kid looks scared, and I'm not letting you near him." For a long moment, no one moved. Then, Micah's hand closed around her wrist. His skin was cold, colder than it should have been, colder than anything living. The touch sent a shock up her arm, not painful, but wrong. "Come with me," he said, quietly. "Now." He pulled her toward the back door, the boy moving like a shadow beside him. Gregor shouted something, but Claire didn't hear it clearly, because Micah moved and the world blurred. She felt wind, smelled asphalt and rain. Her feet left the ground for a moment, and then she was outside, pressed against the brick wall of the alley, Micah's body blocking hers. The boy stood 3 feet away, silent and shaking. From inside the diner came the sound of breaking glass. Claire's heart slammed against her ribs. She looked up at Micah. His eyes had changed, still gray, but brighter now, reflective, like an animal's caught in headlights. "What the hell?" "Quiet," he said. His voice was barely a whisper. "They'll hear you." "Who?" His hand covered her mouth, not rough, but absolute. And then she felt it, the absence of warmth. His palm against her lips wasn't cold the way ice was cold. It was the memory of warmth, like touching something that had been alive once, a long time ago. Her breath caught. Micah's eyes met hers, and she saw it, saw the truth she'd been circling around since the moment he walked in. He wasn't human. The boy wasn't either. Claire's mind raced, trying to fit the pieces together. The pallor, the cold skin, the way they moved. The way Gregor had said court, like it was a place that mattered. Micah released her slowly. His hand dropped. "You're going to run," he said. It wasn't a question. Claire didn't move. Her pulse was thunder, but her feet stayed planted. She could hear her own breathing, ragged and too fast. "No." Micah blinked. "No?" She looked at the boy. He was staring at her with those wide, unblinking eyes. His hands were trembling. "No," she said again. "Not until you tell me what's happening." Micah studied her for a long moment. Then he stepped back, giving her space. The boy moved closer to him, instinctively, the way a child moves toward safety. "Those men," Micah said quietly, "are enforcers. They work for the Eastern Council. They're here to take the boy." "Why?" "Because I broke a law to save him." Claire's hands were shaking now. She pressed them against the brick behind her. The wall was solid, real. "What law?" Micah glanced at the boy, then back at her. "His name is Thomas. He's 67 years old. He's been 8 for 59 of them." The words didn't make sense. Claire's brain tried to process them, failed, tried again. "You turned him," she said slowly, "into a vampire." Micah's gaze was steady. "Yes." Claire's stomach turned. She thought of Lily, of the last time she'd held her, 4 years old, warm and wriggling and alive. "He's a child." "He was dying," Micah said. His voice was quiet, edged with something that might have been pain. "His mother begged me. I gave him a choice. This or nothing. He chose this." Thomas's hands moved, hesitant. He signed. "She said I'd see her again, if I stayed." Claire's throat tightened. "And did you?" Thomas shook his head. Micah's jaw tightened. "She was killed 3 days after I turned him, by the same people who burned the field hospital." Claire closed her eyes. The smell of rain was stronger now. Somewhere close, water dripped onto metal. "Why do they want him?" "Because turning a child is forbidden," Micah said. "The council believes he can't consent, that he'll suffer endlessly, trapped. They want him destroyed." "Destroyed," Claire repeated. "You mean killed?" "He's already dead, technically." Claire opened her eyes. "But he's standing right there." "Yes." She looked at Thomas, at his small, cold hands, at the way he stood close to Micah, like he was the only solid thing in the world. "What happens if they take him?" Micah's expression went flat. "They'll execute him, publicly, to make an example. And you?" "I'll be stripped of my title and executed alongside him." "Your title?" "I'm a king," Micah said, "of the Eastern Council. This is a coup dressed as justice." Claire laughed, a short, broken sound. "A king? Jesus." Thomas made a soft noise. Claire looked at him. He was staring at his hands, and his shoulders were shaking. She thought about walking away, about going back inside, clocking out, getting on the bus, going home to her empty apartment with its fading drawings and unpaid bills. She thought about Lily, about every moment she wasn't there when it mattered. Her hands stopped shaking. "If I help you," she said slowly, "what happens to me?" Micah's gaze sharpened. "You'll be marked." They'll know you chose my side. You'll be under my protection, but also my responsibility. And if I fall, so do you. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Claire looked at Thomas. He was so small, so still. She thought of the fork trembling against glass, of his hands signing back, hesitant. Thank you. Okay, she said. Micah blinked. Okay, I'll help. She pushed off the wall. Her legs felt steadier now. But we're doing this my way, and you're going to explain everything. For the first time, Micah almost smiled. Agreed. Behind them, the back door of the diner slammed open. They didn't go far, just 3 blocks east, to a building that looked abandoned from the outside, but opened to a key card Micah produced from his coat. The interior was clean, modern, hardwood floors, tall windows covered in blackout shades, furniture that looked unused. Safe house, Micah said. He locked the door behind them, 3 locks, each with a different mechanism. Claire heard each one click into place. The boy went immediately to the corner of the room and sat down, knees pulled to his chest. His breathing, if he was breathing, was silent. Claire stood in the center of the space, still catching her breath. Her shirt smelled like fryer grease. Her shoes squeaked on the hardwood. Micah moved to the kitchen, open concept, steel counters, and filled a glass with water. He handed it to her without a word. She drank. The water was cold, clean. It helped. How long do we have? She asked. Hours. Maybe less. Micah leaned against the counter. Gregor will report to the council. They'll convene a tribunal. If I don't appear, they'll send enforcers. And if you do appear, they'll kill us both. Claire set the glass down. Great. She looked around the room. There were no personal items, no photographs, nothing that suggested anyone usually lived here. Just clean surfaces and empty walls. How many of these do you have? Safe houses. Enough. That's not an answer either. Micah's mouth twitched. 7. In this region. Claire walked to the window, careful not to touch the shade. Why did you turn him? Really? Micah's gaze moved to Thomas. Something softened in his expression, barely visible, but there. His mother was a physician, he said quietly. She treated wounded soldiers during the First World War, human and vampire alike. She didn't see sides, just suffering. Claire watched the boy. He was rocking slightly, a rhythmic motion. She was murdered, Micah continued, by a rival faction. They burned the field hospital while she worked. Thomas was inside. Claire's throat tightened. I arrived too late to save her, Micah said. His voice was flat now, distant. But I heard him screaming. He was burning. His legs were crushed under debris. He had minutes. So you turned him? I asked him first. Micah looked at her. His eyes were gray again, human pale. He was 8 years old and dying, and I asked him if he wanted to live. He said yes. The room was quiet. Outside, a siren wailed, distant and fading. How do you do it? Claire asked. Live that long? Remember everything? Micah didn't answer immediately. He moved to the window, pulled the shade aside just enough to look out. The streetlight caught his profile, sharp, angular, ageless. You don't, he said. Not all of it. The years blur. Faces fade. After a century, you stop counting. After 2, you stop caring. He let the shade fall. I've been a king for 300 years. I've signed treaties, waged wars, executed traitors. I don't remember most of their names. But you remember hers, Thomas's mother. Yes. Why? He turned. His eyes caught the dim light from the kitchen. Because she looked at me like I was human, like I could still choose to be good. Claire felt something shift in her chest, a recognition she didn't want to name. She crossed the room and sat down beside Thomas. He didn't look at her, but he didn't move away. She tapped the floor twice, the same rhythm from the diner. Thomas's rocking slowed. She signed, "You're safe." His hands moved, slow and hesitant. For how long? Claire looked up at Micah. He was watching them, expression unreadable. She signed back, "As long as it takes." Thomas leaned against her, just slightly. His weight was cooler than a child's should be, but real, solid. Claire wrapped an arm around him. Micah's gaze lingered on them, and for the first time, she saw something in his face she understood. Loneliness. 6 centuries of it. "What's the plan?" Claire asked. Micah moved away from the window. "There's a hearing in 2 days. The council will decide Thomas's fate. If I can prove his mother consented, if I can show documentation, they might grant an exception. Might. It's the best option we have. And if they don't, then we run." Micah's voice was quiet. "And we keep running." Claire looked down at Thomas. His eyes were closed now, but she didn't think he was sleeping. "What do you need from me?" Micah studied her for a long moment. "Testimony. You're human, neutral. If you testify that Thomas is capable of choice, of emotion, it could sway the council. They'll listen to a waitress? They'll listen to a human witness under the accords." Micah's gaze was steady. "You have more power than you think." Claire's pulse kicked up again. "What if I say the wrong thing?" "Then we die." He said it simply, without drama, like he was stating a fact. Claire's hands tightened on Thomas's shoulder. "Okay," she said. "I'll do it." Micah's expression shifted. Relief, maybe, or something close to it. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet." Thomas stirred. His hand found Claire's, and he squeezed, gently, carefully, like he was afraid of breaking her. She squeezed back. Outside, the rain started, soft at first, then harder. The sound filled the silence. Micah moved to the far side of the room and picked up a phone, sleek, black. He dialed without looking at the screen. "It's me," he said after a moment. "I need a favor." Claire couldn't hear the response, but Micah's jaw tightened. 2 days, he said. "That's all I'm asking." A pause. "Yes, I understand the risk." Another pause. "Thank you." He ended the call and looked at Claire. "We have a hearing, day after tomorrow, noon." Claire nodded. "And until then, we wait." They didn't sleep that night. Claire wasn't sure if Micah or Thomas could sleep. She didn't ask. She sat on the couch, legs tucked under her, while Micah paced near the windows, and Thomas remained in his corner, drawing shapes on the floor with his finger. Around 3 in the morning, Claire finally spoke. "Tell me about the accords." Micah stopped pacing. He looked at her, and for a moment she thought he might refuse. Then he sat down in the chair across from her. "They're treaties," he said, "written after the Purge Wars, nearly 800 years ago. Before them, there was chaos. Ayers hunted freely. Humans retaliated. Entire cities burned." Claire pulled her sleeves over her hands. The room was cold. "The accords established boundaries," Micah continued. "What's permitted between species. Humans who know of our existence are protected. We can't transform anyone without consent. We can't use certain weapons, silver, mostly, in neutral territory. And witnesses have rights. If a human invokes sanctuary, we're bound to hear them." "Why silver?" Micah's hand moved to his wrist, where the skin was still red from the chains Gregor had threatened. "Silver is toxic to us. It destroys our cells, prevents regeneration. A fragment in the bloodstream can kill within hours." Claire stared at the marks on his wrist. "Does it hurt?" "Yes." She didn't know what to say to that. Thomas stood up suddenly. He crossed the room and climbed onto the couch beside Claire, curling into her side like a cat seeking warmth. Micah watched them. His expression was unreadable. "He trusts you," Micah said quietly. Claire looked down at Thomas. His eyes were open, staring at nothing. "I don't know why." "Because you see him," Micah said, "not what he is, who he is." Claire's throat tightened. She rested her hand on Thomas's head. His hair was soft, fine. "What happens if we lose?" she asked. Micah leaned back in the chair. "The council will execute Thomas, publicly. They'll use silver, inject it directly into the heart. It takes minutes. He'll be conscious for all of it." Claire's stomach turned. "And you?" "The same, but they'll make me watch him die first." The room was silent except for the rain. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you deserve to know what you're walking into." Claire looked at him. His face was calm, but his hands were clenched on the armrests. "You care about him," she said. "Really care." Micah's gaze moved to Thomas. "Yes." "Then we won't lose." Micah's mouth twitched. "You sound certain." "I'm not," Claire said, "but I'm stubborn." For the first time, Micah smiled. Small, brief, but real. The next day passed slowly. Micah left twice, each time for less than an hour. He didn't say where he went, and Claire didn't ask. Thomas stayed close to her. He didn't speak, not out loud, but his hands moved often, signing words she didn't always understand. She signed back what she could. Safe, okay, here. In the afternoon, Micah returned with a bag. He set it on the counter and pulled out clothing. A dress, simple and dark, and a pair of shoes. "For the hearing," he said, "you'll need to look presentable." Claire held up the dress. It was her size. "How did you—" "I'm observant." She didn't argue. That evening, Micah sat down across from her again. "The council will ask you questions," he said, "about Thomas, about what you saw. They'll try to discredit you, make you seem unreliable." "I've been cross-examined before," Claire said. "Child services, court. I know how it works." Micah nodded slowly. "This will be worse." "I figured." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "They'll ask why you helped us. You need to have an answer." "What should I say?" "The truth." Claire looked at him. "And what's the truth?" Micah held her gaze. "That you saw a child in danger and chose to act. That's all." "That's not all," Claire said quietly. Micah didn't respond. Thomas climbed onto the couch beside her again. He rested his head on her shoulder. Claire wrapped her arm around him. "I had a daughter," she said. "Her name is Lily. She's 8 now. I lost custody 4 years ago." Micah's expression shifted, something like understanding. "I wasn't a good mother," Claire continued. "I was working 3 jobs. I was tired. I missed appointments. I forgot to pack lunches. And one day, a caseworker showed up and said I wasn't fit." Thomas's hand found hers. "I've spent 4 years wishing I could go back," Claire said, "wishing I could do it differently. And then I saw him." She looked down at Thomas. "And I thought, maybe this time I can get it right." Micah was silent for a long moment. Then he said, very quietly, "You already are." Claire's eyes burned. She blinked hard. "The hearing is at noon," Micah said. "We'll leave at 11. The council hall is an hour north." Claire nodded. Thomas signed something. Micah responded in the same language, quick and fluid. "What did he say?" Claire asked. "He asked if he'll stay with you." Micah's gaze was steady. "I told him yes." Claire looked down at Thomas. His eyes were wide, hopeful. She signed, "I promise." Thomas's grip on her hand tightened. That night, Claire lay on the couch with Thomas curled against her. Micah sat in the chair, watching the windows. She didn't sleep, but she felt less alone than she had in years. At dawn, Micah finally spoke. "Thank you," he said. Claire looked at him. "For what?" "For choosing us." She didn't have an answer for that. Outside, the rain stopped. The sky lightened, gray and soft. It was time. Micah stood and extended his hand. Claire took it. His skin was still cold, but it didn't feel wrong anymore. It felt like a promise. They dressed in silence. Claire put on the dark dress and shoes. Thomas wore a button-down shirt that looked too formal for an 8-year-old, but he didn't complain. Micah wore a suit, charcoal, perfectly tailored. He looked like someone who belonged in boardrooms and courtrooms, someone with power. But when he looked at Thomas, he just looked tired. "Ready?" he asked. Claire nodded. Thomas signed, scared. Claire crouched down in front of him. "Me too. But we're doing this together." Thomas nodded. Micah opened the door. The car was waiting outside, a black sedan, understated. Micah held the door for Claire and Thomas, then slid into the driver's seat. They drove north in silence. Claire watched the city fall away, replaced by trees and hills. The roads grew narrower, the houses farther apart. After an hour, Micah turned onto a gravel drive that wound through dense forest. At the end of the drive stood a building, stone and iron, hidden behind trees that looked ancient, the council hall. Claire's pulse kicked up. Micah parked and turned off the engine. "Whatever happens," he said quietly, "stay close to me. Don't speak unless they ask you a direct question, and don't lie. They'll know." Claire nodded. Thomas's hand found hers. Together, they walked toward the hall. The doors opened before they reached them. The chamber was circular, lit by candles that burned without flickering. The walls were stone, bare except for tapestries so old the images had faded into abstraction. 12 figures sat in a semicircle, all of them impossibly still, impossibly old. Claire felt their eyes on her the moment she stepped inside. Micah walked ahead, his posture straight. Thomas stayed between them, his hand gripping Claire's so tightly she felt her bones shift. A woman stood at the center of the semicircle. She was tall, severe, dressed in dark robes that brushed the floor when she moved. Her eyes were black, not brown, but black, reflective like oil. "Lord Micah," she said. Her voice was cold, precise. "You stand accused of violating the third accord, transformation of a minor without council sanction. How do you plead?" Micah's voice was steady, guilty, with justification. A murmur ran through the council. One of the figures leaned forward, a man with white hair and a face like carved wood. "There is no justification for this crime," he said. "There is," Micah replied, "under the mercy clause. His mother gave consent. He was dying. I offered him a choice." The white-haired man's gaze shifted to Thomas. "A child cannot consent to eternity. He consented to living," Micah said. "That should be enough." The woman, Claire assumed she was the head of the council, raised a hand. Silence. The room obeyed immediately. The woman's gaze moved to Claire. "And you are." "Claire Dawson," she said. Her voice was quieter than she wanted, but steady. "You are human." "Yes." "Why are you here?" Claire glanced at Micah. He nodded, just slightly. "I invoked witness right," Claire said, "under the accords." The woman's expression didn't change. "You understand that bearing false testimony before this council is punishable by death." "I understand." "Very well." The woman gestured to a chair near the center of the room. "Sit." Claire let go of Thomas's hand and crossed to the chair. It was wood, plain, uncomfortable. She sat down and folded her hands in her lap to keep them from shaking. The woman circled her slowly, like a predator assessing prey. "Tell us what you witnessed," she said. Claire took a breath. "I was working at a diner 2 nights ago. Micah and Thomas came in. 3 men followed them. They threatened Thomas. They tried to take him by force." The white-haired man interrupted. "Lord Micah brought the child into neutral territory. That nullifies." "Gregor attacked first," Claire said, cutting him off. She looked at the man directly. "He violated sanctuary, not Micah." The man's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. The woman continued circling. "You intervened." "Yes." "Why?" "Because Thomas was scared," Claire said, "and no one else was helping him." "You risked your life for a creature you didn't know?" "He's not a creature," Claire said. Her voice was sharper now. "He's a child." The woman stopped in front of her. "Is he?" Claire met her gaze. "Yes." The woman's expression didn't shift. "You lost custody of your own child, did you not?" Claire's stomach dropped. "How did you—" "We know everything," the woman said. "Your daughter, Lily, removed from your care 4 years ago due to neglect." "It wasn't neglect," Claire said. Her voice cracked. "I was working. I was trying to." "You failed," the woman said flatly. "So tell me, Miss Dawson, why should we trust your judgment now?" Claire's hands clenched in her lap. "Because I know what it feels like to lose someone, and I know what it looks like when someone's trying to protect a child they love." The woman tilted her head. "You believe Lord Micah loves this boy?" "I know he does." "How?" "Because he asked me." "To help," Claire said. "And a man who didn't care wouldn't risk everything for someone else's life." The room was silent. The woman turned to Micah. "Is this true? Do you love the child?" Micah's gaze didn't waver. "Yes." "Why?" "Because he deserved a chance," Micah said quietly. "Because his mother saved hundreds of lives, and I couldn't save hers. Because he looked at me while he was burning and said he wasn't ready to die." His voice caught, just barely, but Claire heard it. "So I gave him time," Micah continued, "to grow, to choose. And when he's ready, I'll undo it, if that's what he wants." The white-haired man leaned forward. "That's not possible." "It is," Micah said. "There are rituals, old ones. If performed before the 1st century, transformation can be reversed." The council murmured again. The woman raised her hand. Silence. She looked at Thomas. He was standing near the back of the room now, small and pale. "Come here, child," she said. Thomas hesitated. Then he walked forward, slow and careful. The woman crouched down, eye level with him. "Do you understand what you are?" Thomas nodded. "Do you wish to remain this way?" Thomas's hands moved, signing. His movements were hesitant, but clear. The woman's gaze flicked to Micah. "Translate." Micah's voice was quiet. "He says he doesn't know yet. He says he wants time to decide." The woman studied Thomas for a long moment. Then she stood. "This council will deliberate," she said. "You will wait outside." Micah inclined his head. "As you command, Lady Alira." Alira. So that was her name. Claire stood and followed Micah and Thomas out of the chamber. The doors closed behind them with a sound like a gunshot. They waited in a narrow hallway lined with more tapestries. There were no chairs, no windows. Micah leaned against the wall, his arms crossed. His face was expressionless, but his hands were clenched. Thomas sat on the floor and pulled his knees to his chest. Claire paced. "How long does this take?" she asked. "Hours," Micah said. "Sometimes days." Claire's stomach twisted. "What do you think they'll decide?" "I don't know. That's not helpful." Micah looked at her. His eyes were gray again, tired. "I've lived 600 years, Claire. I've seen the council show mercy twice. Both times, it was because someone reminded them what it felt like to be human." "You think I reminded them?" "I think you tried." Claire stopped pacing. "What happens if they say no?" Micah's gaze moved to Thomas. "Then we run, and we keep running until they stop chasing us. And if they don't stop, then we fight." Claire sat down beside Thomas. He leaned against her, and she wrapped her arm around him. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. Micah frowned. "For what?" "For dragging you into this. You didn't drag me. I chose this." Micah's expression softened. "Why?" Claire looked down at Thomas. "Because he reminded me of her, of Lily, and I couldn't walk away." Thomas's hand found hers. He squeezed gently. The doors opened. Alira stood in the threshold, her face unreadable. "The council has reached a decision," she said. Claire's pulse thundered in her ears. Micah straightened. Alira's gaze moved between them. "Come." They walked back into the chamber. The 12 figures were still seated, still impossibly still. Alira stood at the center. "This council has reviewed the testimony," she said. "We have considered the evidence, and we have deliberated on the question of the child's fate." She paused. Claire held her breath. "We find that Lord Micah acted within the parameters of the mercy clause," Alira said. "The transformation was sanctioned by the mother. The child was given a choice, and Lord Micah has demonstrated intent to honor that choice." Claire's knees almost gave out. "However," Alira continued, "the child will remain under strict observation. At the age of 100, he will be given the choice to revert to mortality. If he chooses to remain as he is, he will be bound by the full laws of our kind." She looked at Micah. "Do you accept these terms?" Micah's voice was steady. "I do." Alira's gaze moved to Thomas. "And you, child?" Thomas signed. Micah translated. "He accepts." Alira nodded. "Then this matter is closed." The council rose as one and filed out of the chamber. Claire exhaled, shaking. Micah turned to her. "Thank you." She nodded, unable to speak. Thomas wrapped his arms around her waist, and for the first time in years, Claire felt like she'd done something right. They left the council hall in silence. The afternoon sun was pale through the trees, and the gravel crunched under their feet. Claire felt lightheaded, like she'd been holding her breath for hours and only just remembered to exhale. Thomas walked between them, his hand in Micah. He looked up at the sky, squinting slightly. Micah opened the car door for Claire, then helped Thomas into the back seat. He slid into the driver's seat and started the engine, but didn't pull away immediately. He sat there, hands on the wheel, staring straight ahead.
"Are you okay?" Claire asked. Micah didn't answer right away.
Then he said, very quietly, I didn't think they'd rule in our favor. But they did. Yes. His grip on the wheel tightened. Because of you. Claire looked out the window. I just told the truth. That's more than most people would have done. He put the car in gear and pulled onto the narrow road. The trees closed in around them, filtering the light into soft green shadows. They drove for 20 minutes before Micah's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, frowned, and answered. Yes. A pause. Claire couldn't hear the voice on the other end, but she saw Micah's jaw tighten. When? Another pause. I understand. He ended the call and set the phone down carefully. What is it? Claire asked. Gregor's been released, Micah said. His tone was flat. The council dropped all charges. Claire's stomach sank. How? Political favors. Gregor has allies, powerful ones. Micah's gaze flicked to the rearview mirror, checking on Thomas. He'll come for us. Not today, but soon. What do we do? We disappear, Micah said, for a while, until things settle. Claire looked back at Thomas. He was staring out the window, his face expressionless. Where will you go? Micah hesitated. I have a place, remote, off the council's radar. Can I come? Micah glanced at her, surprised. You don't have to. I know, Claire said, but I want to. Micah studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. All right. They stopped at the safe house long enough to pack. Claire had nothing with her except the clothes on her back, so Micah gave her a bag with essentials, more clothing, a coat, cash. Thomas packed his own bag, methodical and careful. He folded each piece of clothing with the precision of someone much older. Claire watched him. You've done this before. Thomas nodded. He signed, many times. Micah appeared in the doorway. Ready? Thomas nodded again. They drove north for 3 hours, the landscape shifting from city to farmland to dense forest. The roads grew narrower, less maintained. Twice, Micah turned onto dirt paths that didn't look like roads at all. Finally, they reached a house. It was small, wooden, nestled into the side of a hill. Smoke rose from the chimney, thin and gray. The windows were dark. Micah parked and got out. Claire followed, Thomas close behind. The air smelled like pine and wood smoke. The only sound was the wind moving through the trees. Someone's here, Claire said. A friend, Micah replied. He knocked on the door. 3 times, a specific rhythm. The door opened. A man stood in the threshold. He was older, at least in appearance, with silver hair and a lined face. His eyes were the same pale gray as Micah's. You're late, the man said. We had complications, Micah replied. The man's gaze moved to Claire, then to Thomas. I see. He stepped aside. Come in. The interior was warm, lit by a fire in a stone hearth. The furniture was old but well kept. Bookshelves lined the walls, filled with volumes in languages Claire didn't recognize. The man closed the door and locked it. Who's the human? Claire Dawson, Micah said. She helped us at the hearing. The man studied her. You're brave. Or foolish. Both, probably, Claire said. The man almost smiled. I'm Nathaniel. I've known Micah for 2 centuries. If he trusts you, I suppose I can tolerate you. Thanks, Claire said dryly. Nathaniel gestured to the couch. Sit. I'll make tea. Claire sat, and Thomas climbed up beside her. Micah remained standing near the door, his posture tense. Relax, Nathaniel called from the kitchen. Gregor doesn't know about this place. He will, eventually, Micah said. Not if you're smart. Nathaniel returned with a tray, 3 cups of tea, and a glass of something red for Thomas. He handed Claire a cup. It was hot, fragrant with herbs she didn't recognize. Thomas took the glass carefully. He sipped it, and some color returned to his cheeks. Blood? Claire asked quietly. Synthetic, Nathaniel said. We've been making it for decades. Close enough to the real thing that children can survive on it. Claire looked at Thomas. He was drinking slowly, his eyes half closed. You're safe here, Nathaniel said. For now. But Gregor has resources. He'll find you eventually. Then what do we do? Claire asked. Micah finally sat down. We wait. And we prepare. For what? For war, Micah said quietly. Claire's tea went cold in her hands. That night, Nathaniel gave Claire a room on the second floor. It was small, simple, a bed, a dresser, a window overlooking the forest. She lay down but didn't sleep. Her mind raced, replaying the hearing, Gregor's face, the way Micah had said, "We prepare." A soft knock came at the door. "Come in," she said. The door opened. Thomas stepped inside, clutching the blanket. "Can't sleep?" Claire asked. Thomas shook his head. Claire pulled back the covers. "Come here." Thomas climbed into the bed and curled up beside her. His skin was cool, but his weight was comforting. She wrapped her arms around him. "You're safe," she whispered. Thomas's hand found hers. He signed against her palm. "Thank you." Claire's throat tightened. "You don't have to thank me." Thomas signed again. "You stayed." Claire closed her eyes. "Yeah, I stayed." They lay there in the dark, and eventually, Claire felt Thomas go still. Not sleeping, she didn't think he could, but resting. She stared at the ceiling and wondered what she'd gotten herself into. The next morning, Micah was gone. Claire found Nathaniel in the kitchen, drinking something dark from a porcelain cup. "Where is he?" she asked. "Scouting," Nathaniel said. "Making sure Gregor hasn't picked up the trail." "Is that likely?" "More than I'd like." Claire poured herself coffee from the pot on the stove. "When will he be back?" "Tonight. Maybe." She sat down at the table. Nathaniel watched her over the rim of his cup. "You care about them," he said. It wasn't a question. Claire wrapped her hands around the mug. "Yeah. Why?" She thought about it. "Because they needed someone, and I needed to matter." Nathaniel's expression softened. "You matter to them, more than you know." Claire looked down at her coffee. "I lost my daughter. I wasn't there when she needed me. I guess I'm trying to make up for that. By saving someone else's child?" "Something like that." Nathaniel set his cup down. "Micah doesn't let people in easily. He's trusted maybe 5 people in 6 centuries. You're one of them now." "I don't know if I deserve that." "Deserve has nothing to do with it," Nathaniel said. "You acted when it mattered. That's enough." Thomas appeared in the doorway, his hair mussed. He signed, "Hungry." Nathaniel stood. "Come, I'll make you something." Claire watched them move into the kitchen, and for the first time in years, she felt like she was part of something. Micah returned at dusk. His coat was damp with rain, and there was blood on his knuckles. Claire stood from the couch. "What happened?" "Gregor's men," Micah said shortly. 2 of them. They were asking questions in the nearest town. "Did they see you?" "No, but they're close." Nathaniel appeared from the back room. "How close?" 10 miles, maybe less." Micah looked at Claire. "We need to leave. Tonight." Claire's pulse kicked up. "Where?" "Farther north. There's a settlement. Other vampires who've broken with the council. We'll be safe there." "For how long?" Micah's gaze was steady. "As long as it takes." Claire looked at Thomas. He was standing near the fire, watching them with wide eyes. She nodded. "Okay, let's go." They packed quickly. Nathaniel gave them supplies: food, water, more synthetic blood for Thomas. At the door, Nathaniel clasped Micah's shoulder. "Be careful, old friend." "Always," Micah said. Nathaniel looked at Claire. "Keep him honest." "I'll try," she said. They stepped out into the rain. The forest was dark, the trees swaying in the wind. Micah led the way, Thomas between them. Claire followed, her heart pounding. Behind them, in the distance, she heard the sound of engines. Gregor was coming. They moved through the forest in silence, the rain soaking through Claire's coat within minutes. Her shoes slipped on wet leaves and exposed roots. Thomas kept pace without complaint, his small hand gripping Micah's. The sound of engines grew louder. "How many?" Claire asked, breathless. "At least 3 vehicles," Micah said. "Maybe more." "Can we outrun them?" "No." Micah stopped suddenly. He turned to Claire, his expression grim. "There's a ravine 1/2 mile east. If we can reach it before they close in, we can lose them in the terrain. And if we can't, then I fight." Claire grabbed his arm. "You can't fight them all." I can try. Thomas made a soft sound. He signed something rapid, urgent. Micah's jaw tightened. No. What did he say? Claire asked. He wants to surrender himself, Micah said flatly. To stop this? Absolutely not, Claire said. She crouched down in front of Thomas. We're not giving up on you. Understand? Thomas's eyes filled, not with tears, but something close. He nodded. Micah touched Claire's shoulder. We need to move. They ran. The forest blurred around them. Claire's lungs burned. Her legs ached. But she kept going, driven by the sound of voices behind them, shouting, coordinated. Gregor's men were close. Micah veered left, pulling Thomas with him. Claire followed, barely keeping up. The ground dropped suddenly. Claire stumbled, caught herself at a tree trunk. Ahead, the ravine opened like a wound in the earth, 30 feet deep, lined with jagged rocks and rushing water at the bottom. Micah scanned the edge. There's a path. Narrow. We'll have to climb down. Claire looked at the sheer drop. Her stomach turned. That's not a path. That's a death sentence. It's the only option we have. Headlights cut through the trees behind them. Go, Micah said. Now. He handed Thomas to Claire. The boy's weight was slight, but solid. Claire wrapped her arms around him and started down the steep incline, her feet sliding on wet rock. Micah followed, moving faster, his hand bracing against the stone. Behind them, car doors slammed, voices echoed. They're here, one of the men shouted. East side. Claire's foot slipped. She fell hard. Thomas clutched against her chest. Pain shot through her hip, but she forced herself up, ignoring it. Keep moving, Micah said. They reached the bottom. The water was shallow but fast, ice cold. Claire waded through it, Thomas clinging to her. Micah turned back, looking up at the ridge. 3 figures appeared at the top. Gregor was in the center, his face shadowed. Lord Micah, Gregor called, his voice carried over the rushing water. This is pointless. Surrender the boy. We'll make it quick. No, Micah said. Gregor sighed. Then you leave us no choice. He gestured. The 2 men beside him raised their hands. Claire saw the glint of silver, knives, long and curved. They jumped. Micah moved to intercept. He caught the first man mid-air, slamming him into the rocks. The impact was sickening. The man didn't get up. The second man landed beside Claire. He lunged for Thomas. Claire didn't think. She swung her arm hard, catching the man across the face. He staggered, more surprised than hurt. Then Micah was there. He grabbed the man by the throat and threw him into the water. The current took him, dragging him downstream. Gregor landed lightly, almost gracefully. He straightened, brushing rain from his coat. You always were stubborn, Micah, he said. And you always were a coward, Micah replied. Gregor smiled. He drew a blade, silver, gleaming even in the dim light. Micah's expression didn't change. Claire? Yeah? Take Thomas. Go. I'm not leaving you. You have to. No. Gregor lunged. Micah blocked, his hand catching Gregor's wrist. The blade hovered inches from his chest. Claire, Micah said through gritted teeth. Go. Thomas tugged on her sleeve. He signed, please. Claire's chest ached. She looked at Micah, at the way his hands shook holding Gregor back, at the silver blade so close to his heart. She ran. Thomas's arms wrapped around her neck as she stumbled upstream, the water dragging at her legs. Behind her, she heard the clash of bodies, the sound of stone cracking. She didn't look back. The ravine curved. Claire followed it, her breath ragged. Thomas was shaking against her, silent but trembling. A hand grabbed her shoulder. She spun, fist raised. It was Micah. He was covered in blood. His coat was torn. His face was pale, strained. Are you hurt? Claire asked. No. He glanced behind him. Gregor's down, but there are more coming. How many? Too many. They kept moving. The ravine widened, opening into a clearing. The rain was lighter here, just a mist. Micah stopped. His phone was in his hand. He dialed quickly. It's me, he said. I need an extraction, now. A pause. I don't care what it costs. Just get us out. He ended the call and looked at Claire. Help is coming. 15 minutes. We don't have 15 minutes, Claire said. I know. Micah turned to face the ravine. His posture was rigid, ready. Claire set Thomas down. She crouched in front of him. "Listen to me," she said. "No matter what happens, you stay behind me. Understand?" Thomas nodded. "Good." She stood and moved beside Micah. Her hands were shaking, but she clenched them into fists. "You don't have to do this," Micah said quietly. "Yes, I do." He looked at her. His eyes were bright in the dim light, silver, reflective. "Thank you," he said. "Don't thank me yet." Figures emerged from the ravine, 4 of them, then 6, then more. Gregor was at the front, limping but upright. His face was bloodied, his expression cold. "This ends now," he said. Micah stepped forward. "You're right, it does." Gregor gestured. The enforcers advanced. Micah met them head-on. He moved like water, fluid, impossible to pin down. He disarmed one, broke another's arm, sent a third sprawling into the mud. But there were too many. One of them got past him. He lunged for Thomas. Claire threw herself in front of the boy. The enforcer's hand closed around her throat. She gasped, clawing at his grip. Thomas screamed, a sound she'd never heard from him, raw and broken. Micah's head snapped around. His eyes went wide. "Let her go," he said. His voice was low, lethal. The enforcer tightened his grip. Claire's vision blurred. Then the enforcer's hand fell away. He crumpled, silver blade protruding from his back. Micah stood behind him, breathing hard. He pulled Claire to her feet. "Are you okay?" She nodded, coughing. Gregor lunged. His blade caught Micah's side. Micah staggered, blood spreading across his shirt. Claire's heart stopped. "Micah!" she shouted. He turned, and Gregor struck again. This time, the blade sank deep into Micah's chest. Micah went down. "No!" Claire screamed. She ran to him, dropping to her knees. His eyes were open but unfocused. Blood pooled beneath him, dark and spreading. Thomas was beside her, his hands shaking. Gregor stood over them, blade still in hand. "It's over," he said. Claire looked up at him. Her vision was red. Her hands were covered in Micah's blood. She didn't think. She grabbed the silver blade from the mud, the one Micah had used, and drove it upward. It caught Gregor in the thigh. He shouted, stumbling back. Claire stood. Her hands were steady now. "You want him?" she said. Her voice was cold. "You go through me first." Gregor stared at her. Then he laughed, sharp, disbelieving. "You're just human," he said. "Yeah," Claire said, "and I'm still standing." A sound cut through the clearing, a low hum, growing louder. Headlights appeared through the trees. A vehicle pulled into the clearing. The door opened, and 2 figures stepped out. They wore dark clothing, moved with purpose. One of them looked at Gregor. "Stand down." Gregor's expression darkened. By whose authority? Lady Elira's. Gregor hesitated. Then he stepped back, his jaw tight. The figure turned to Claire. "You're Claire Dawson?" "Yes." "Lady Elira sends us. You and the boy are under her protection now." Claire looked down at Micah. He was still breathing, barely. "And him? He'll live, if we move quickly." They lifted Micah carefully, loading him into the vehicle. Claire and Thomas climbed in after him. As they drove away, Claire looked back. Gregor stood in the clearing, watching them disappear. She held Thomas close and pressed her hand to Micah's chest, feeling the faint rise and fall. "Stay with me," she whispered. His eyes opened, just slightly. He looked at her, and he smiled. 3 weeks later, Claire stood in the kitchen of a house she didn't own, pouring coffee into a mug that wasn't hers. The house was in the mountains, 2 hours north of the city. It had high ceilings, wide windows, and a yard where Thomas could sit in the early morning light, carefully, for short periods, without fear. Micah was in the living room, reading. He did that often now. Old books, leather-bound, and languages Claire didn't recognize. The wound in his chest had healed, leaving only a thin silver scar that would fade in time. Thomas was at the table, drawing. He'd started doing that a week ago. Pictures of trees mostly, and people. One of them was Claire. She set the coffee down and sat beside him. He looked up, smiled, a small, shy thing. She signed, "That's beautiful." He signed back, "Thank you." His hands were steadier now. The trembling had stopped days ago. Micah appeared in the doorway. The council sent word. Gregor has been stripped of his rank. Claire looked up. Good. They also issued a decree. Micah crossed the room and sat across from her. Witness right has been expanded. Humans under protection can testify without prior council approval. Because of me? Because of you. Claire stared at him. That's big. Yes. Micah's gaze was steady. You changed 6 centuries of law in 3 minutes. I'm not sure you understand what that means. I'm not sure I want to. He almost smiled. Thomas tugged on her sleeve. He pointed to the drawing, then to her. Claire looked. He'd added something new. A small house, surrounded by trees, and 3 figures standing in front of it. A man, a woman, a boy. Her throat tightened. Is this us? She asked. Thomas nodded. She pulled him close. He was still cool to the touch, still lighter than a child should be. But he was there, solid, real. Micah watched them, his expression soft. We have time, he said quietly. All the time we need. Claire looked out the window. The sun was rising, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose. The trees swayed gently in the breeze. What happens now? She asked. Now, Micah said, we live. Claire thought about that, about what living meant now. She'd spent 4 years in limbo, caught between the life she'd lost and the one she couldn't seem to start. But this, sitting here with Thomas's small weight against her side, Micah's steady presence across the table, this felt like something. What about Gregor? She asked. He's been exiled, Micah said, sent to the outer territories. He won't be a problem anymore. And if he comes back, then I'll deal with it. Micah's voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. You and Thomas are under my protection. That's not a promise I make lightly. Claire nodded. She believed him. Thomas signed something. Micah responded in kind, quick and fluid. What did he say? Claire asked. He asked if you're staying. Claire looked at Thomas. His eyes were wide, hopeful. Am I? She asked Micah. Micah leaned back in his chair. That's your choice. You're not bound here. You're free to leave whenever you want. And if I stay, then you stay. Claire thought about her apartment in Baltimore, the eviction notice, the drawings on the fridge, the empty rooms. She thought about Lily, 8 years old now, living with a family Claire had never met. Happy, the caseworker had said. Thriving. Maybe that was enough. Maybe letting go meant knowing Lily was safe, even if it wasn't with her. I'll stay, Claire said. Thomas's face lit up. He threw his arms around her, and she held him tight. Micah's expression shifted. Relief, maybe? Or something close to it. Thank you, he said. For what? For choosing us. Claire looked at him. You keep saying that, but I think you chose me too. Micah didn't respond, but his gaze lingered on her, warm and steady. Later that afternoon, Claire walked through the yard with Thomas. He picked up fallen leaves and examined them with the kind of focus only a child could manage. She sat on the porch steps, watching him. The air was cool, crisp. Autumn was settling in. Micah joined her, 2 mugs in hand. He handed her one, tea, fragrant and warm. They sat in silence for a while, watching Thomas. Do you regret it? Micah asked. Getting involved? Claire thought about it. No. Do you? No. She glanced at him. He was looking at Thomas, and there was something in his expression she hadn't seen before. Peace, maybe, or the beginning of it. What will you teach him? Claire asked. When he's older? Everything, Micah said. History, languages, how to survive, how to be kind. Kindness seems important to you. It's the only thing that matters. Claire sipped her tea. It was good, better than anything she'd made herself. What about you? Micah asked. What will you do? Claire thought about that. I don't know yet. Maybe I'll figure it out as I go. That's a good plan. She smiled. Is it? It's the only one that makes sense. Thomas ran up to them, holding a leaf. He signed, Look, it's perfect, Claire signed back. He beamed and ran off again. He's happy, Micah said quietly. I haven't seen him like this in years. You gave him a chance, Claire said. That's more than most people get. We gave him a chance, Micah corrected. Claire looked at him. His eyes were gray in the afternoon light, calm and clear. "Yeah," she said, "I guess we did." That evening, they ate dinner together. Micah had cooked, something simple but good. Thomas ate slowly, savoring each bite. Claire watched them and felt something settle in her chest. Not happiness, exactly, but something close. Contentment, maybe. After dinner, Thomas climbed onto the couch and curled up beside Claire. She wrapped a blanket around him and ran her fingers through his hair. Micah sat across from them, a book open in his lap. But he wasn't reading. He was watching them, his expression soft. "Thank you," Claire said. Micah looked up. "For what?" "For letting me stay." "You don't need to thank me for that." "I know, but I want to." Micah set the book aside. "You're part of this now, you and Thomas. That's not something I take lightly." "I know." "Good." Thomas's breathing slowed. Claire thought he might be asleep, or whatever passed for sleep in his case. She looked at Micah. "What happens when he reaches 100? When he has to choose?" "Then he chooses," Micah said. "And whatever he decides, I'll honor it. Even if he wants to be human again? Especially then." Claire nodded. "That's good. That's right." Micah's gaze held hers. "You're a good person, Claire." "I'm just doing what I can." "That's more than most." They sat in silence for a while, the fire crackling softly in the hearth. Eventually, Micah stood. "I'll take him to bed." He lifted Thomas carefully, cradling him like something precious. Thomas stirred, but didn't wake. Claire watched them go, her chest tight. When Micah returned, he sat beside her on the couch. "Are you all right?" he asked. "Yeah," Claire said. "I think I am." Micah nodded. "Good." They sat together, the fire burning low. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows. But inside, it was warm. Claire leaned her head against Micah's shoulder. He didn't pull away. "We'll be okay," she said. "Yes," Micah said. "We will." And for the first time in years, Claire believed it. The next morning, Claire woke to sunlight streaming through the window. She could hear Thomas in the kitchen, the soft clatter of dishes. She got up and found him making breakfast, or trying to. There were eggs on the counter, a pan on the stove. "Need help?" she asked. Thomas nodded, smiling. They cooked together, side by side. It wasn't perfect. The eggs were a little burnt, the toast too dark, but it was theirs. Micah joined them, his hair still damp from the shower. He looked at the table, at the mismatched plates and slightly charred food, and smiled. "This looks good," he said. Thomas beamed. They ate together, the three of them, and the house felt full. After breakfast, Claire stepped outside. The air was cool, the sky clear. She closed her eyes and breathed in deeply. Behind her, the door opened. Micah stepped out. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For giving me a reason to stay." Micah's hand found hers. His skin was cool but steady. "Thank you," he said, "for giving us a reason to hope." Claire squeezed his hand, and together they stood in the morning light, watching the world wake up. For the first time in a long time, the future didn't feel heavy. It felt possible.